welcome to Drilling Insight. I'm Jeremy Verduzco, host and editor of National Driller magazine. I'm joined today by drilling trainer, national drill writer, and my co-host, Brock Yorty. How are you doing today, Brock?
Doing good, Jeremy. I'm on site. There's some gnats. It's about 100 degrees, but it's a beautiful day.
Well, a driller's work is never done, so you're always in the field. So with us today is Dr. Charles Landis of Integrity Biochem. Thanks for being on the show, Charles. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Jeremy. Doing great. It's air conditioned, 72 degrees, not a gnat within 50 yards of me, and I kind of still wish I was with Brock.
Okay, well, Dr. Landis has a PhD in geology from Texas Tech and has spent much of the decades since pushing the envelope on drilling and completion fluids in and out of the oil patch. He's currently Chief Technology Officer for Integrity Biochem, leading a mission to provide innovative chemical solutions for the industry. We brought Charles in to hear more about that development process and find out what's behind it. So I guess first question, Charles, did you choose the industry or did the industry choose you?
No, I think it was a case where the rocks chose me. I was a fortunate young man in the 1970s that knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life 14 months after I paid my first college tuition payment. I took a field trip in the fall of 1979. And jumped out of our van for a geology course, and jumped out of my van and looked up and saw a 300 million year old delta exposed in a road cut in central Pennsylvania. And I went back and changed my degree from accounting to geology that week, and I've never looked back. It's been a wonderful, multi-decade type opportunity. It's going to end well. It was great along the way, thanks to meeting folks like Brock Yorty. Brock and I had a common time at a major drilling fluid company, and we met at different times in our career, and it's a great thrill to see Brock today. But I'll never forget how it started. I jumped out. I was just taking courses to play football at a small school. Jumped out of the van. The sun was coming up over the outcrop, and I could see in cross section, thanks to the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, I could see a classic, well-preserved delta, and I knew I wanted to be a geologist ever since. Didn't know what I wanted to do, but I have never looked back. It's been wonderful.
In your description, you can almost hear the angels singing as you're looking up at it.
Sure, absolutely. The minstrels were singing that morning.
So
great.
Accounting to looking at a 300 million year old rock in this was a geology field course you were taking?
Yep. Yeah. So I was a football player at a Division III school, and I didn't care about anything but football and girls and beer at the time when I had to pick the school. And the accounting degree was way before the internet machine, there were things called pieces of paper that we had to fill out and mail back to the university to declare your initial major. And accounting was at the top of the list. It was April of 1978, and I checked off accounting because it was the top one. And I showed up there my freshman year and hated it. Had to take a science course anyways. They required you to take a science course. I picked geology because it fit my schedule. And then 3 weeks into that course, we're out in the field looking at rocks, and it changed my life. And that was really 14 months after my first tuition payment. I knew what I wanted to do. It's just amazing how it unfolds that way sometimes.
And then, okay, so great course, you got excited, but there's a long road before you become a doctor in geology and geoscience. How the heck did you get there?
Passion. I have never regretted being a geologist. Now, geologists aren't what people now consider true scientists, but I have always loved how rocks are formed and fall in place in 3 dimensions. And I never felt like that I had enough. I felt like there was enough opportunity to fill up, and it turned out to be 9 of the best years of my life, getting my master's degree and my PhD degree consecutively in a row. And I just loved every minute. I met a couple advisors who felt like I could contribute to the sciences. They thought, and I am naturally inquisitive about what I study, so I asked a bunch of questions and came up with some answers and found some stuff out and never lost the interest. And when I ran out of degrees, I had to go look for a job. That's what my dad told me in 1989. He said that eventually you're going to run out of degrees to get unless you decide to leave geology. So I just decided to go find a job that allowed me to do everything. And of course, then it was a whole new experience, but that I never left. The projects were great. I had great advisors and I loved what I was doing. I mean, it was just really that simple.
So you jump from accounting, geology, your doctorate, and then you got into R&D, and that's how I met you. Was you were director of the technical new products and whatnot. We're an industry that's very skeptical about new products. How do you work through that? How do you introduce new products? Because every time I've ever met you, Charlie, you've said, "Hey, this is the future. This is where we need to go." And how do you do that?
Well, there is one bridge every scientist has to cross if they want to have a fruitful career in industry, and that is when you're in graduate school, you're asked to come up with, recognize an unsolved problem with no conditions of its commercial benefit to an industry or a company. When you take a job in industry, and particularly the first job I had as a research scientist, I still wasn't engaged at that. I still was engaged at that level where I was allowed to predict or participate in projects that may or may not have a direct commercial outcome. The bridge you have to cross to enjoy hearing and seeing and feeling what the next round of innovation will be is understanding that a large part of your opportunities come from issues or unmet needs in industry, and therefore you have to hope and be interested in those as well to solve with what you've learned, with the tools you've learned during your education. If you can cross that bridge, then you're able to speak to customers about their major problems and identify innovations or changes in their approach or changes in the materials that allow you to participate and engage it, interest you as well as them to a benefit. So that's really what I did.
Mm-hmm. So Brock had brought up the product innovation aspect. I'm curious, how long do you go, or how long does it take you or, companies that you might consult with to go from idea through development to a new product that you can have folks using out in the field?
So that's a wonderful question because it's a nuanced answer. If you're looking at a simple line extension, where all you're doing is adding a feature to an established product, it can be a matter of months. But you have to tell yourself the truth that if you're looking at new to the industry introduction, it could be years. Brock was my champion for a product that we developed in our lab at our former company, where he was one of the guys who risked it on us, risked our scientific results in the lab, and took it to the field and had early success. As a matter of fact, he was among the most successful at doing that. But we still were working on that product a year or two later or even beyond to optimize that product. So as you grow older as an innovator, what you do is you initially try to find, and you have to be prepared to spend a full calendar year and hope to find someone like Brock who will accept your level of scientific effort and take it to the field and work with it in the field, recognizing its unfulfilled, unfinished product. But even then, you have to be willing to look at milestones. How much market share do you have at 18 months? When do you achieve 5% market share in the cycle? And use those as benchmarks as true acceptance of the technology. But to get out in the field, to take a new to the industry product, it's about a year.
Okay. So how do you find these, for lack of a better word, guinea pigs, these folks that will, give it a go, kick the tires on, whatever you've come up with and then commit to giving you honest feedback?
Well, there's two great vehicles to entering the American private sector market. There are people who are in trouble and there are people who are growing their business. There's a bunch of different psychologies around any one commercial opportunity, but with respect to new technology introductions, people who are growing their business and people who are in trouble are almost immediately receptive. Now, they have different criteria to evaluate your technology and your ideas and your products, but they are immediately, you rarely get kicked out of the room if you understand their situation, if you're able to come in with a technology or a product and speak to their current framing, their current mindset. If you're with someone in trouble, you can get in the field pretty quickly as long as you're credible with them. But if you're with somebody in growth mode, they're going to want to go through a really rigorous evaluation to compare their current situation to where they are now. And you have to assess how big of an opportunity is for you across that period of time. Are you missing other opportunities for someone who might be in trouble to get you in the market in 3 to 6 months?
Mm-hmm. So you really approach both kind of from a different standpoint or a different pitch.
I'm equally optimistic about my chances, but I have to have a different expectation of when they're going to embrace our results. The folks in trouble will be more receptive to making something work. I just had something come across my desk. They are corroding their gear, and they've asked us to come to them with a solution quickly. They are calling me up every half day wanting to know where I am with my testing. The guys who are in growth mode, they expect appropriate updates, but I don't hear from them unless I have a milestone to report or something or they have a change in conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's the tough thing, Charlie. So in the field trial process, and I have field trialed products for you as a part of your team, and I field trialed products as a customer in the field. And, from growth mode to trouble mode, how do you get the right results out of the field trial? Because we're looking for that magic bullet. How do you differentiate between, a placebo effect and the real deal?
Mm-hmm. So in growth mode opportunities, I'm shocked how much more, I'm pleased by how much more statistics are required to make a decision. It allows me to make great decisions around the second generation of product. So just as an example, we're introducing a new fluid additive for the oil industry in a hydraulic fracturing situation. And they're going to give us 9 wells where they're giving us a part of their field where they have 17 wells. And we're going to get 9 wells to trial our material across 20 different stages in the well. So that's 180 different opportunities versus 8 wells where they're not going to trial the material. And all we had to agree upon was how long would we wait before we render a decision around the performance. So there we have statistically meaningful results in a situation where the customer was willing to evaluate it fairly. And that's in growth mode. These people are satisfied with what they have. They're going to pay, they're going to get paid, a great price on the trial pricing, and they're going to help us set up a statistically relevant deal. Trouble mode guys, it could be a situation where you solve a problem here, they think it's a silver bullet, and they try it somewhere else, and you fail miserably, right? Because they're living with 1 or 2 data points. And usually what we have to do, if you want to preserve your credibility, you have to be able to build in what I call sensitivity analysis, where if you identify specific areas of performance, you have to know the range of conditions where that performance could be expected or not expected. And if you don't have that, you can stub your toe and lose some credibility. And that's happened to me. I'm anxious to sell stuff. This is still America, and I'm still anxious to get some material out there. But the trouble mode folks can lead to downstream problems. You can solve their problem today and be the source of their problem the next time you drill because they're just so anxious to put it down the hole. Whereas the growth mode guys are measured, disciplined, and give you a forum for more comprehensive review.
And I bet the growth mode folks, in the example you gave, that's a control group right there. You know how you perform vis-a-vis the control group.
Absolutely. They don't want to make a decision without some degree of statistical certainty because they're pretty happy with what they have, but they're still willing to be receptive because we've identified a problem for them that could be concern. And that's the key, is recognizing where they may or may not have they have problems. They either know it or they don't. And, you know, if you can explain to them what you may not be able to do, you get some license to try.
Mm-hmm. So you had touched on it a little bit, but so, you know, say you have good results in one area, what, you know, how do you know that a product you're working on will work in other areas under other conditions? Or, I mean, do you run multiple field tests in different geologies, different, you know, downhole conditions?
So that's a spectacularly insightful question, because you always live with a certain amount of uncertainty in any new product introduction for a long time. It takes, I took a course in 1993 that opened my eyes and defines how I live with risk and how I live with using analogs to extend the market size and scope of a product. Prudhoe Bay, which is the largest oil field in North America, was discovered with less than 80% of the information that is available to it, was available to it for the time when they drilled the well. And at some level, when you're extending a new product into the marketplace, you have to decide how much information you're willing to live with to make that recommendation into another application, into another area, into another fluid. And, you know, although I have stubbed my toes 20% of the time, I'm like Michael Jordan. My teammates still ask me to take the last shot in the game. And the reality is, the upside of taking risks, if you are suitably successful, outweighs that periodic time, those infrequent times when you don't perform as well as the product doesn't perform as well as you expect. With that said, we guard against that by doing sensitivity analysis. We try to identify the parameters our customer considers to be important for the performance, and then we do at least a 1 order of magnitude range across that condition, whether it's salinity, pH, something like that, that allows you to get some sense of how well that'll perform, that when you go to the customer with a new application, you can at least present that, let him say, did you acceptably consider this new situation? And at my age, I'm going to take a lot more chances. My career story has been written. I've met the people like Brock Yorty, who's taken a chance on me. For whoever, I'll be forever grateful for him. But I'm just in a mode now where I'm living with more risk than I've ever lived before, and I love it and I live with 80% certainty as opposed to 99% certainty.
With that, I think we'll wrap up today's episode. Thanks again, Charles. You definitely seem determined to bring this industry forward, and and I'm sure a lot of my audience appreciates that. I thought it was kind of interesting how the reception to change can be different on where your mindset is a company, whether you're trying to do damage control, or you're trying to be cautious and grow and find the latest technology to do that. Brock, what did you think?
I absolutely agree, and I'll build on that with being a young professional going in the field with a new product. It was great in the way that the team, that the company Charlie and I worked with, especially Charlie, for me to come back and say, yeah, we just shipped up $10,000 worth of this product, and I decided at the last minute it wasn't the right application, because that was one of the aspects, is that we want something to work so badly that we're willing to use it on anything, and then we get the wrong foot forward, we stumble, we stub our toe. And Charlie always had my back on that. And hearing him say this now, as at 40, I'm an adult in this industry now, right? So like hearing him say that, it's like, shit, this makes sense. And just thanks, Charlie. Thanks for being an excellent part of this industry.
No, thank you, bro. And I want to wish you the best, Brock. It's been wonderful knowing you're out there, and stay in touch from time to time. And if I can ever help you out, let me know.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Charles. Where can the audience find out more about you?
Well, in Wyoming, there are dollar bills taped to the ceiling when I was drunk in my 20s. I don't want to start there. I think we should go with our website, on LinkedIn. Those are the only two places that I think I am visible. I have a cell phone number, and I can talk to anyone forever. I think I'd rather let Brock hand that out, but probably LinkedIn and integritybiochem.com.
All right.
Stay away from Wyoming.
Okay. Well, if you're working on an interesting project or have industry wisdom to share, go to nationaldriller.com/contact us. Send me a message to be considered for a guest spot on Drilling Insight. And you can find fresh episodes of the show on our website and on Apple Podcasts every other week. Search Drilling Insight and don't forget to hit subscribe. Visit our site for the latest drilling industry news, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and of course, LinkedIn. And until next time, this is Drilling Insight. Thank you both.